Get to know the Packers' newest veteran receiver, Sammy Watkins, from the man who profiled him after he won the Super Bowl.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. You can follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Today on the show, Tyler Dunne from Go Long, formerly of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and USA Today and Bleacher Report, talking about Sammy Watkins. A couple years ago, he wrote an incredible monster feature on Sammy Watkins, got to know him pretty well. And so I wanted to give you guys a chance to get to know Sammy Watkins a little bit too. I understand if you didn't watch a lot of Ravens football last year when that offense was pretty gross at times. And he's the guy who's basically spent his whole career in the AFC outside of 1 year. Now that 1 year was with Matt LaFleur. But I wanted to give you some insight in there about Sammy Watkins. And no one knows Sammy, at least in the media, better than Ty. Before we get to Ty, today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your #1 spot for all of your gambling needs. We still have plenty to gamble on this summer. Baseball, hockey, Stanley Cup final is coming up here. MMA, boxing, golf, still plenty of stuff. And NFL futures, the NBA futures are out. Go to the website, use your mobile device to get more on the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Joining me now, someone Packer fans go way back with, and that you can now go long with, right? Ty Dunne from Go Long, from awesome work that you and now Bob McGinn are doing. The dynamic duo is back in action. Ty, it's good to be with you.
Appreciate that, Pete. Great to be here on the #1 Packers podcast in the world. So it's an honor.
You're the man. Thank you so much for being here. And under I would say much less contentious circumstances than the last time you were on when there were a lot of people in Packers Nation who were very mad at you. This is, I think, going to be a much easier on your Twitter mentions. I want to talk to you.
Let's change that. Let's get controversial. Let's shake it up, man. Let's do it.
I want to talk first about Sammy Watkins because a couple of years ago, you wrote a really fascinating piece. I think that was really the piece that unlocked for everyone who was paying attention. This guy's a little different. He marches to the beat of his own drum, and there has been some speculation. Okay, that's why he and Aaron Rodgers are going to get along. When you're talking to him for this piece, and he's dropping some of these like wild quotes, just from that standpoint, just from like, okay, you hear these things for the first time. What are you thinking about?
He can make you believe. And I get it. After I wrote that story, I was getting text messages from, people in the business, even some players like, whoa, Sammy Watkins, what is going on here? He needs mental help. And I responded to everybody like, he does not. This is as good as I've ever seen Sammy Watkins. And I got to know him pretty well in Buffalo. They drafted him in 2014. I started on the beat in 2015, around for 2016. He was in a bad place. Nobody knew then. The GM didn't, the head coach didn't know, teammates didn't know, but he was depressed. He was injured. His brother's getting caught up in a big RICO investigation down in Florida. I mean, basically everybody he grew up with, relatives, friends, all going to court and thinking they're going to be locked away for a number of years. It took a toll mentally, physically. So, long story short, he falls into this rabbit hole. He's just kind of studying up on different religions, and that leads to studying up on entities in the world, good and bad, that are amongst us, that attach themselves to us and basically live in us. Astral realms, etheric bodies, different dimensions, demons, all this stuff. I mean, it's like a collection of different beliefs, but it took him to this place, and people can read the story to get it in full. But it led him to a really good place himself. I mean, he is genuinely happy, loving father, loving husband, family man. I think he's genuinely at peace in a really good place, as weird as it took to kind of get there.
He talked about a couple weeks ago at his locker about really feeling like his career has not gone the way that he thought it would. And he feels like this is an opportunity for him to right that wrong. And I think a lot of people, myself included, when he signed in Green Bay, were like, okay, this is sort of his one last chance to lock on with, no pun intended, a superstar quarterback, an MVP quarterback, and try and win a ring like he did with Pat Mahomes, not someone trying to recapture the prime of their career. That's not how Sammy Watkins is viewing this journey right now. And it's easy to forget that Sammy Watkins, I believe, just turned 29. When you think about his career, if they played his career 10 times, is this one of the like 2 or 3 worst versions of Sammy Watkins? And just in terms of the on the field guy that we would have seen?
I know it's easy, it's simplistic, but when he's healthy, he's as good as it gets. And it's a huge when, it's a huge if. He's been injured everywhere he's been, Buffalo to LA to Kansas City. But when he's healthy, I really think he can be that receiver that you saw in the Super Bowl in Miami, one-on-one with Richard Sherman, game on the line, Super Bowl on the line, and he roasts him. I mean, he beats him up the sideline. It's all there. I mean, he's got the speed, the separation. And look, Baltimore, we just had Willie Snead on our podcast, and he was unbelievably blunt. Receivers don't want to play there. Veterans don't want to go there because of Greg Roman's offense. It's about as elementary as it gets. Steve Smith, when he went on that, that rant after Baltimore lost to Buffalo in the playoffs, I think he was speaking for a lot of players. It's not a pass-friendly, receiver-happy offense. Lamar Jackson's got special gifts. You want him to run and do all this creative stuff up front, but in terms of what we saw to Sammy Watkins in Baltimore, I don't think you can really judge that. But in Green Bay, with Aaron Rodgers, with a team that needs him, anybody could be the number 1 receiver, 1 through 6. Who knows how that's going to sort itself out? But when he's healthy, and it's a huge variable, I'll give you that. He could be that guy again in a big moment, making the big play you need. And I love all the other stuff. I mean, I tell you what, and after we talked for, I think it was 5 hours that we just talked over dinner and some drinks down in Orlando, out of that Super Bowl win, I started going down some of these rabbit holes. He can make you believe. I mean, there was a play, we were talking about it, like in high school basketball, I busted my head open. I'm bleeding all over the court. It was like my one shiny moment, I guess. I sound like Uncle Rico, in high school sports, but I get it stitched up. I come back in the game. It was a weird feeling. It was an out of body feeling. I could still think of it now. And as I'm detailing it to Sammy Watkins, he's like, yes. He's like, that was out of body. You were controlling yourself outside of your physical body. He's like, now that feeling that you had, and maybe some of your listeners have had out of body experiences. He's like, that feeling, I can make myself do that and feel like that all the time. So, hey, you know what? I think him and Aaron Rodgers hit it off. They'll talk about all kinds of psychedelic whatever. And, get on their astral realms and kind of manifest Super Bowl wins into existence, I guess.
Yeah, get out the crystals, go out to Zion. Yeah, I mean, I think they will get along swimmingly. I think sometimes receivers, and he was. It's easy to forget now. He was the top receiver taken in that 2014 draft. That was Devontae Adams was in that draft. Odell Beckham Jr. was in that draft. Brandon Cooks was in that draft. Allen Robinson was in that draft. The pedigree was pretty incredible. And guys like that over the course of their careers, especially at receiver, they often, I wouldn't say create issues, but they can agitate for the ball, right? Mm-hmm. He really in Kansas City seemed to never be that guy. In Buffalo wasn't really that guy. It was just he always seemed to also be a sort of consummate teammate. And in Kansas City, I marveled when he made that game-winning play, how happy everyone on that team was for Sammy Watkins. And I'm like, they have Pat Mahomes. They've got all these guys, Andy Reid, and it seemed like to a man, everyone was just gassed up for Sammy Watkins. It just seems like people are drawn to him.
He has that personality. I mean, he's a genuinely loving human being. I mean, I think that in a locker room, guys love the way he talks and the way he thinks. And I mean, he'll get into debates with a McCole Hardman in one corner of the locker room and talk about stuff with Patrick Mahomes in the other. And Andy Reid was kind of a father figure for him very soon. You hear that a lot about Andy Reid, that he really wants to connect with players on a very personal level. But I think he took a liking to Sammy Watkins early, and that was somebody that could call him, or Sammy could call Reid, basically any hour on the hour, and just talk about life, talk about their kids, all of that stuff. So yeah, you want that in your locker room. I think that stuff matters, especially when you're a winning team, a Super Bowl contending team. A little tweak here, a little tweak there, and in the locker room, it's hard to quantify, right? You can't put it up on an Excel spreadsheet, and we're not going to, grind the all 22 together to figure out that impact, but it matters. I mean, I was just out in Minnesota, like we were talking a few weeks back. The way that they're looking at it is they lost 8 of 9 by a touchdown or less, and they did it with a head coach who does not have a good relationship with his players. It was ugly, very ugly with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. They flip it to Kevin O'Connell, and they're thinking that culture is going to matter. So on a very granular level with Sammy Watkins in Green Bay, with a good culture already kind of in place, I think that, yeah, that you can't really minimize the impact they'll have in your locker room.
Well, that's
who knows?
Really good
maybe
segue.
we'll get somebody reading up on spirits and whatnot.
That's a really good segue to this next section that I want to get to, because Matt LaFleur, the stories are myriad about the way that he changed this culture and where the culture was at the end of the Mike McCarthy experience. And no one has detailed it in more granular detail than you about what was going on at the end there with Mike McCarthy. This change from Matt LaFleur, I mean, I think it's hard to understate just how big that change has been. Now, I don't know if it has contributed to winning football games, but you tell me, because you understood what it was like with the McCarthy era at the end there, and how frayed some of those relationships were. And it seems like it is so different now with what is going on in Green Bay. And that seems like it's because of Matt LaFleur, at least the primary reason.
I'm not there day in and day out on the beat anymore. And I haven't even talked to Matt LaFleur. It'd be great to have a conversation with him, but I can tell you it was bad. Right. It was really bad at the end with Mike McCarthy. And I think a lot of it had to do too with, rest in peace, Ted Thompson wasn't Ted Thompson at the end. And so the players that are coming in aren't exactly the players that Mike McCarthy wants. He wants to sign veterans. That's not even happening. It was kind of a multi-layered disaster. And Aaron Rodgers was a part of that. He was in effort mode that season before. I mean, he didn't care. I mean, he's changing plays more than he ever had, and he changed plays a lot with Mike McCarthy, even early on. He didn't really, regardless of what's said publicly, the respect wasn't there. The mutual intelligent, being on the same intelligent level, it wasn't there. It never was. Maybe he's right too. I think Aaron Rodgers probably had to change a lot of those plays. He had to freelance. He had to do his own thing, but it got to a point where, you had a bad relationship between your head coach and your quarterback. That had to be repaired. Forget that. It had to be completely rebuilt from the ground up with a young head coach. The fact that it's gotten to this point and they've figured out a way to kind of let Aaron Rodgers do his thing at the line of scrimmage, yet you also have this playbook and you're winning a lot of games. You have to give Matt LaFleur tons of credit for that. Like I said, I don't know him that well, but from where it was to where they are now, a lot of that has to do with the head coach. But here's where it gets interesting. I mean, Davante Adams is gone. And a big reason that Aaron Rodgers had all this success was he could go up to the line of scrimmage and just change things on the fly, play pickup ball with Davante Adams off of plays that they saw, in 2014,
right?
2015, 2016. That's gone. All these new receivers are in. It's going to take a commitment from Aaron Rodgers, I think, to really trust some of those play calls coming in more often and trust the bigger picture. You're probably going to have to run the ball more. Probably going to have to play off your defense a little bit more. Not going to be able to freelance with a Christian Watson or even a, Juwan Winfrey out there like you could have Davante Adams. So is he willing to take that step, trust the coaching, trust the play calls, and maybe swallow the ego in a way that he hasn't had to before and win 24-13? They did win a lot of those games this past season, but now I think it goes to an even more extreme level because you don't have Davante Adams.
Yeah, no question about it. I want to end on this and sort of marry your two areas of expertise, or you have many areas of expertise, but for our purposes, you are still very hooked into what's going on in Buffalo, and you have been on the Jordan Love story since it had happened. Really, it seems like if you want to make the best case for Jordan Love, it is basically the Josh Allen plan, not the Patrick Mahomes plan, because now we're talking about year 3, and that's when Allen really popped. That's also when Aaron Rodgers really popped. When you look at what the things that they did for Josh in Buffalo and what the Packers have been trying to do with Jordan Love, do you think it's possible for him to make, I guess, the year 3 leap, given what we know about the Packers coaches, about Jordan, and based on what you know and saw in Buffalo?
Boy, I don't know if I'm ready to take that leap.
Not to be the quality of Josh Allen, but just to say, okay, year 3, this can be the year for him.
No doubt. I think the big difference too, Josh Allen did have that rookie season where he could screw up, and he's surrounded with not a lot of talent. Buffalo, they break the drought in Sean McDermott's first year, and they didn't really mean to. It was kind of by accident.
Right.
They were rebuilding things, and then they get Josh Allen, and then they let a lot of talent walk out the door. They go 6-10, but I think that season of just, running around, leaping over Anthony Barr, using his big arm, they had not a lot of talent at receiver, but it helped. He could kind of like screw up, make mistakes. I feel like Green Bay, I mean, your listeners know where I stand on this. It would have benefited just to rip the Band-Aid off, go through a season like that with Jordan Love. Just do it. We'll see what happens. I get going for a ring, going for a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, talent level quarterbacks, they do not grow on trees. I get all of that, but we've seen this story. It's ended in the divisional round, the conference championship round. It seemed like a huge opportunity to just take a ton of picks, move forward with the quarterback you drafted in the first round, and transition. So where is his development? I don't think we know. I really don't think we know where Jordan Love is. There's been some good, some bad. That Kansas City game, I don't think they necessarily had a game plan that catered to his strengths. I think a lot of that was on the coaching, and I don't think it was nearly as disastrous as some folks made it out to be.
I agree.
But it wasn't great. I'm not saying that, it was akin to Aaron Rodgers in Dallas in 2007. But I think preseason games will help. Training camp reps will help. And yeah, three years in the system is going to help. And if they see anything behind the scenes that suggests that he can be the guy, maybe you're not as quick to bend the knee and basically give Aaron Rodgers anything he wants in offseason if we're at this point again and he's thinking about retirement. But they're so far deep into being all in with Aaron Rodgers, I can't see them doing anything but that. I think that he's there as long as he wants. He can drag things out as long as he wants, ask for whatever he wants behind the scenes, whether it's, define whatever protocols for whatever pandemic is all the rage at that point, or getting any contract he wants. And hey, maybe that's how you have to operate, because heck, if you're a team, you'll make those concessions as opposed to whatever the hell the Cleveland Browns are doing with Deshaun Watson. I mean, that's just a crime of morality there. But teams are going to do anything in their power to get their hands on a stud star quarterback. Yep. So I do get the logic with Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur. I just feel like an opportunity might have been lost 2 off seasons in a row. If Russell Wilson's going to get what he got, if Deshaun Watson's going to get what he got, Mike, who knows what the Packers could have gotten a trade, but I guess we'll never know.
Well, Aaron Rodgers still under contract, so it could theoretically still happen next spring. I doubt it, but it theoretically could still happen. Ty, I appreciate it, man. Good to talk to you.
Great seeing you, Pete. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Ty, again for coming on the show. Always great to talk to him. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in on the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. All right, we're going to be back next week. Plenty more to get to as we head toward training camp. Still on that 3-day-a-week schedule, Monday, Wednesday, and our Summer Fridays. I hope you're enjoying these Summer Friday series. I got some good recommendations from people. People love Cassidy Hill. People want Justice Mosqueda back on the show. People want Aaron Nagler and Andy Herman back on the show. which I had a feeling that they would, and some good new names out there for me to try and reach out and see if we can get some of those guys on the show in the upcoming weeks before the season opens. We're going to keep doing Summer Fridays through into training camp and maybe even into August, just because I think there's a lot to get to and we don't always have time for it during the season. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to hit us up on the Locked On Packers fan hotline, you can do that, 920-341-3775 to stay Locked On Packers.